Hey YouTube, it is the last week of the GBL season. All leagues are on, Great League, Ultra League, Match League this morning. So I've put out Great League and top Ultra League teams every time the league turns over. So if you want to go check out any of those Great League and Ultra League top teams, you can just search my Great League and Ultra League playlist or top team, like just top teams, and you'll get a bunch of ideas. This morning, what I did in the Great League is I went over the new Pokemon that people potentially will be using in the Great League. You're going to have access to sort of 4 Pokemon if you do the raids for this week. Cresselia, Giratina, Origin, Darkrai, and Heatran. So I went over like what Pokemon have play in the Great League. And I want to do the same thing in the Ultra League and how you team build with them in the Ultra League. It's very similar team building in both leagues. It's maybe a little different with movesets as you're going to see on Giratina Origin if you want to use that instead of Altered. But again, we will start with the worst. Again, look at all those great dark Pokemon. Let's use Darkrai. No, you would not use Darkrai. And it suffers from the same thing that it suffers from in the Great League, right? So this analysis will be much shorter. If you want to see, I guess I should explain it here, why. If you don't want to go watch the Great League, I suggest you watch the Great League video. But essentially, the main drawbacks with this Pokemon is it is a very high attack stat Pokemon with a very, very, very pathetic defense and stamina. So it's a super glassy Pokemon, and unfortunately with its stats here for its moves does not help make up for that lack of any sort of defense and stamina stat product. Your Snarl, okay move. Dark Pulse, okay move. Shadow Ball, same thing. Like, you have your lowest energy move is 50, which is pretty high for a Snarl fast move energy generation here. And then you have the 1 stab move, which gives you almost 2 damage, which is not bad. But then, like, either you have to go with the next 2 damages per energy is Focus Blast, which is way too long for you in the Ultra League. Put on your Fighting Fairy and Bug weakness, and just like the meta of fighters and other stuff. Like look, you are a dark Pokemon. This is how pathetic this is. Look at one of your key losses. You are a dark Pokemon running a Dark Snarl and a Dark Pulse move, and you lose to Giratina Altered with as a Ghost. Like, if this doesn't raise flags right here of why this Pokemon is terrible, like, I don't know what will raise a flag. So Darkrai, not it. Heatran, people are arguing Heatran in the Ultra and the Great League. I argue that it's just as I say no. I argue it's just as bad in the Ultra League. Again, somewhat higher. Not higher stat product, but like more balanced stat product. Still, the defense and stamina is not what you need it to be compared to all these like Ultra League Pokemon or either other legendary Pokemon. And the moveset, same thing. Magma Storm, decent for a 40 energy move, almost 2 damage per energy. Fire Spin got the buff, but you really lack from a secondary move that you can really hit hard on, right? All these are 50, 55 energy and still like less than 2 damage per energy. And then your typing, right? That picking up that steel typing, if you're going to be weak to like fire, if you're going to be fire, I'd rather have just be a pure fire and also be weak to rock than I would add a steel typing and be weak to fighting, right? Because there's so many fighters. Yes, there is a ton of resistances, but I just think with all the key losses to your fighters and stuff, like there's a lot of like dragons like Giratina stuff that will resist fire to begin with. I just don't think it's a very, very valuable Pokemon. Where it gets interesting is Giratina Origin. So Giratina Altered is like OP in this league, and it has been since season 1. It's just extremely bulky and extremely spammy. And let's just look at a Giratina Origin Altered stats, and then you can see why Giratina Origin is ranked lower, but has some play. It just depends how you want to use it. So obviously lower attack, 133, but then you get the 165 defense and a 209 stamina for the 4600 overall. And just to compare, so 4600 overall compared to 4000 overall, right? Not bad. Slightly higher attack, lower defense, decent stamina, right? So in of itself, the stat product, yes, 600 behind is not insignificant, but it's not stat-wise the worst at all. Where Giratina Alter just dominates is the moveset, right? Because it has the Shadow Claw, which is one of the best fast moves in the game in terms of energy generation and damage combo. And you have, with that bulk, basically 3 spammy moves if you really think about it. Shadow Sneak, Ancient Power, and Dragon Claw. Shadow Sneak and Dragon Claw, just get that. Dragon Claw 1.71 damage per energy is not bad for 35. Shadow Sneak 1.33 is not great. You're mostly using this for coverage when Dragon Claw is resisted. And then again, between the Shadow Claw and the Shadow Sneak, you should be able just to like chip a ton. Some people use Ancient Power to cover flyer weaknesses. Like if you're going to have like a Pidgeot or something like that, or a Charizard, it's not a bad idea to have Ancient Power. I just prefer running Dragon Claw and Shadow Sneak myself. But that's what makes Giratina so strong. So when you have not as good of a stat product, but not terrible, right? You still have one of the best fast moves in the game with Shadow Claw. And now you have 3 moves realistically to choose from. I'm going to say 2 to choose from because you have to run Shadow Ball, I think. Shadow Ball is a must with that over 2 damage per energy for only a 55 move, right? So I think Shadow Ball is a must. In the Great League, I argued you need Omnis Win because you don't have the bulk of the other Great League Pokemons, right? Because you are legendary, but you don't have the bulk of like all these XL Pokemons running around in Great League. So you don't really have the bulk to go for a 55 energy move and a 60 energy move with Dragon Pulse. So I said you kind of need that bait move in Omnis Win. The recommended moveset in the Ultra League is Dragon Pulse, and there's 2 reasons for that. One is I think that you now do have more bulk, right? Like we looked at the overall stat product for Giratina at the 4,000 and said like Giratina Origin is 4,600, right? And that's one of the best in this meta, right? So if you take just like other Pokemon, I don't want to just do like Swampert because that's more glassy. But right, you have your 3,900 stat product, so you're like bulkier than Swampert. Trying to think like other Pokemon. Jellicent's probably tankier than you. 4,400, yeah. So it's in between the Giratinas, which makes sense there. But just from that perspective, if I just go to like Poliwrath, 4,100, so it's just got like a slightly better overall stat product. But like you're in the realm of where you should be in the Ultra League with other Pokemon, right? And that's what makes one of the 2 reasons why Dragon Pulse is an option, because you're not just going to be getting outbulked compared to other Pokemon like you would in the Great League. So you can compare with other Pokemon in the Ultra League. So that way, if you want to do, instead of having a bait move, which is a terrible damage per energy, you can get a decently damage per energy 1.8 for 60 Dragon Pulse. Of course, you would just be running, if you had these 2 movesets, you would just be running Shadow Ball 90% of the time. When would you not run Shadow Ball? And this is where Dragon Pulse comes in handy. There are some dragons outside of Giratina, like there's Dragonite and stuff like that. So having that super effective move is nice. I think where it comes even in more handy, though, is all your dark and normal type Pokemon. And there is a significant amount of those, right? So if we just put in dark, which resists all the ghost, Mandibuzz, Guzzlord, Scrafty, Greninja, Skunk, Obstagoon, Umbreon. And then when you go to the normal typings, you're going to get even more with the Pidgeot, Greedent, Double, Licky, Snorlax, Miltank. You're kind of getting sort of meh there. So to just have something to throw at those Pokemon instead of just getting walled completely, I think is worth the trade-off. So I would run Giratina. I'd run Giratina Altered, quite honestly. If you wanted to run Giratina Origin, you wouldn't play it the same way you play Giratina Altered. Giratina Altered is truly like safe swap, sponge, spammy. Giratina Origin, you're using more as a hard-hitting Pokemon to try and like take down other Pokemon. And in the Great League, like I said, if you're going to run the double ghost moveset, you basically just need two other Pokemon that can handle darks and normal typings, because you just get walled by those. In the Ultra League, I wouldn't veer too much from that strategy. Yes, you have Dragon Pulse, which is okay in terms of being able to hit some of those things, but more likely than not, you're still going to get killed by those, right? So yes, it's better, but if you're still doing like resisted with the Shadow Claws and a hard hitting but like higher energy Dragon Pulse, it's just not going to flip a lot of matchups anyway. So I still think you have to cover those 2. You don't need to cover those 2 as hard. I have seen in the past people use a double ghost strategy with Giratina or with either Cofagrigus or Trevenant in the back. And this is where You think either Giratina can work if you want to try and pull out that normal typing or dark and then hit them with the Dragon Pulse. You're still going to lose, but you can at least do that there and then have your Cofagrigus or Trevenant or whatever other ghost you have in the back roam free. So that's an option. Again, if you watch my team building series earlier this week, I don't love ABB style teams, but it is an option. And then the last one is Cress. And there's two things with Cress here. So much like Great League, insane bulk, great Psycho Cut fast charging move set, Grass Knot 1.8 for 50 as your lower energy move. In the Great League, you use Future Sight, and that's because there are not a ton of Darks and Dragons. I don't want to say there's not a ton of them, but there is more in the Ultra League than there are in the Great League. And there's more Fire in the Ultra League than there is in the Great League. Maybe that's not true. That's kind of true. That point is actually what makes Moonblast worse. But I'll talk about Moonblast, why they recommend Moonblast. So in terms of energy, it's 5 quicker than Future Sight. Okay, nothing substantial there when you have a decent fast charging move. Less damage per energy. So that is why in Great League you just have Future Sight as the recommended move now. Not a ton of darks. Not a ton of darks in Great League. So it gives you the better option to just run the harder hitting Future Sight move as opposed to Moonblast. In the Ultra League, there's a decent amount of Dark and there's a decent amount of Dragon, right? In Great League, you're really only running Dragonair. You can argue Dragonite and Arctibax and stuff like that a little bit, but it's not as much. Here, they're out in full force, right? Giratina, which you could... Giratina, right? So having the Moonblast there. Guzzlord, Dragonite. If this new Gear Origin comes up more, Como-O. So you're really seeing a lot more Dragons in the Ultra League. So that is why Moonblast between the Darks, right? Let's just throw up the Darks here. Mandibuzz, Guzzlord, Scrafty. I already kind of went over these Darks. The Ultra League is better to have Moonblast. Just be aware of the weaknesses of Cresselia. Same at the Great League. Whether you run Future Sight or Moonblast, you will have nothing to throw at Steels. So cover your Steel weakness. And the problem now is why Future Sight was better for Cress is because you would also get walled against Fire with Moonblast Grass Knot, because Grass and Fairy are both resisted by Fire. So if you run this moveset here, in the Ultra League, you will be like Charizard will resist your charge moves. So that is something to consider when you're building a team to cover more of that Charizard weakness, because you can just get Steels and Charizard sort of thing. So Swampert, something like that, always works well with Cress. But that's it. Last week, I do have one video of mine from earlier this season, a double electric team. So that will come maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday. And then we'll probably play Great League and Ultra League this week. And I will bring you the news of the league new season and the beyond the hype of what moves actually buffed and nerfed makes a difference. So that is it. Good luck on your final push to Legend. If you have a good team where you push to Legend, link in the description. If you want to submit some videos, some battles, basically upload them to your Google Drive. Send me the link in the description. Send me your link in the link in the description. Just make sure I have access to the files, because a lot of people have sent me their battles and then I don't have access to the files, so I can't actually get the battles. And then if it's a good team or you hit Legend, I'll probably showcase it. Anyways, that is it. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.